All right, we're back, and it's COMP228, week 3, lesson 3, part 4, and we're live remote. Um, here talking about Java, and again, we're just continuing what we did earlier today when we were into our class from this afternoon. So I'm going to move back. What we were doing is we're into our first part, so we're into part 1 still. We didn't quite get through it all, and we stopped. Hopefully, this will start us off where it was before. Kind of stopped partway through, about halfway here. We were looking at Java APIs, and then we were getting into this idea of simulation and game playing, and the idea of this random class, this case study, random number generation, and how to create random numbers. And then what I did was, in our code, I went here in Eclipse, and I've changed my resolution, so hopefully this will be a little better for everybody out there. Inside my Eclipse, I have this methods and arrays program, this class. And inside of here, I have a couple of things that I was doing. One of them was I was generating this result in my roll dice method. Here's my roll dice method. So I'm going to put that into play. So roll dice method. In my roll dice method, then, what I was doing was I have a couple of these things going on. I've got my secure random generator. That's what it's doing, to generate random numbers. And in here, what it's doing is it's saying my result then, which is my result sum, the sum of my dice throws, is what it's going to return. So my roll dice method is returning the result of a series of dice throws. Okay, now we had some suggestions from the floor, and one of them is that I have a number of dice. Instead of if it's less than or equal to, I can say, well, it's less than the number of dice I'm throwing, because I've chosen to do, let's say, 2 dice. So if it's less than 2, so it goes 0, 1, and then when it goes less than 2, it's going to stop. But is that really what we want? Let's check that result out. If I go less than 2, or less than the number of dice, if I want to throw 2 dice. So here's the example: 3 dice, and then a number which are 6-sided. So number of dice, number of sides, 3 dice, 6-sided. And when I roll this, when I kind of roll this out, let me try this out here, I should get a number between 3 and 18. Let's try rolling it again. There's 11, there's 10, there's 10, there's 6, there's 13. So I know that right now I'm over the, the 13. I was over 12, so that means I'm generating 14, 13. Wow, I'm not rolling a great D&D character, because D&D is a 3d6, 3 6-sided dice, right? But that's working nicely now, right? Using this methodology, right? So that's a fix. And that's my new method, my roll dice method. Okay, this is cool, but wouldn't it be grand if I created a way of getting a input so that I can continue to roll the dice over and over again, and this is something that the player would enter into my game, right? So I need a scanner. So let's do that here in my main method. So scanner, and we're going to call this scanner input, right? Which is a new scanner element, just like we did last time, which is we're going to use system dot, and if I press I in, there's in, system.in, that's where we're going to get kind of input from the keyboard. Right, that's what we're looking for here. And if you notice, my scanner is glowing red, and the reason why it's glowing red is because if I hover over it as a fix, I need to import the java.util library. So I'm going to do that. And if you notice, it kind of puts it into play in the right order. My import statements get organized as I input this new item. So input scanner, this input. And what I want to do now is I want to use the scanner to get values from my input. And depending what my input is, as an example, I want to assign that value, like I did last time, into my game, right? So let's take a look in the PowerPoint. I got some examples here of how we do that. So here's my secure random. We did this piece. Here's my face. And we kind of format the output. That's how we're formatting on the way out. And if you notice, we've kind of done this where in my roll die method, and this is just similar to what we're doing here, I'm going to roll a number of dice. Now, my method is a little bit different than this one in that it doesn't count the frequency. And here, what I'm doing is this is counting the frequency of how many times you get, the different die 1, die 2, die 3. I'm not doing that in my game. What I'm doing is I'm getting input from the screen, right? So let's go back. Go back to my clips here. Here's my scanner.input. And if remember how we can do the input, if I was to look this up and I want to get an input, I can go input dot, and if I go input dot next line, right? Well, this returns a string, right? So I need to string some kind of string value to receive it. If I want to get input dot next int, so let's try this out. So next int, I see that is a possibility too. I can ask for integer values, right? So therefore, I can say something like this. I can say, I can ask for a 3 or a 6, right, as an example, and I can store this value in, if I go next int, into another prompt, like prompt I'm going to ask the user for how many dice I want to roll and how many sides I want to roll. How many sides of the dice? What kind of dice are there? How many sides do they have? And of course, I can enter in as many dice sides or whatever as possible. There's no checking right now to see that it makes any sense, because I can have a 5-sided polygon? Probably not, right? Let's take a look. All right, so I need to define then, just erase this. I need to define some other kind of variable to hold the value that's coming from my input object, right? That's what I need to hold. And of course, I need to make it of type int, right? So I'm going to say int, and my int is going to be my, let's say my prompt value, let's say, if I can type. Prompt value is an integer, right? Okay. And my prompt value then, and if you notice, I'm just going to kind of, if I do this, it glows yellow saying I haven't used it. I'm going to set my prompt value to 0, right? Okay, good. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say system dot out, if you notice, dot print line. I'm going to say, please, maybe not print line, but print or enter the number of dice, right? So if I say enter the number of dice, right? That's what it's going to do. I don't want it to be print line because that'll add a new line character. I don't want that. I want to then say something like this: prompt value, right, is equal to input dot next int. Next int, right? So that's going to listen for the next integer that I'm asking for, right? And now, instead of rolling the dice, with a fixed number of 3, I can just say prompt value, right? I can use this value here. Can send this value, the value of this integer, into my method. Now we've done this kind of stuff before in C#. So let's run this and see if this works, right? So here we go. Enter the number of dice. And again, I can adjust this. I'm going to say 3 dice, and then there's a value of 7, and my program is terminated, right, as it shows here. Let's add a little space there, right? Let's add a little colon there to make it more formatted, right? Enter the number of dice. And I can do the same thing, but then I've got to say num dice instead of prompt value. Let's refactor this thing. So I'm going to go right-click, right? I'm going to click on refactor, rename, and when I rename this thing, I'm going to say num dice. So enter the number of dice, num dice, right? Make sense? And now we'll have another integer, right? Num sides, right? The 0 right now. And by the way, we can make other default values. These are the default value, default number of dice, right? And here's the default number of sides. And I think, 0 and 0 make no sense. I'm probably going to make it so it's defaulted to 2 dice that are 6-sided. That'll be the default value. So if I don't enter anything, or if I don't make any, I can accept those default values if I don't enter something, maybe. Well, here I'm forced to enter something. right? So whether I enter something or not, I'm just going to copy these values, enter the number of sides, right? And this is going to be num sides, so num sides, right? And of course, I'm going to put num dice and num sides here, num sides, here it is. And what this is going to do is allow me to enter my number of dice, my number of sides, and decide the type of dice I'm entering. So here's the number of dice.